This is TWiT.
Alrighty, we are back from the break, and I am super excited to be joined by the wonderful Leah Nylen of Bloomberg, who is here to tell us about where things stand in the antitrust case. Welcome back to the show, Leah.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, always a pleasure to have you on. I think it's fantastic getting to talk to you and kind of understand where things are. So I was hoping that we could kind of kick things off. You know, I feel like at this point, you are our source of truth when it comes to the Google Antitrust case for Tech News Weekly. So could you start by kind of bringing our viewers up to speed? What's led us to this point and what the government was originally seeking in terms of remedies against Google?
Yes. So this is the Google Antitrust search case. There are two of them, but this one relates to Google's alleged monopoly. Well, it's not alleged. They have an illegal monopoly over search, according to the court. And the Justice Department had asked the court to remedy that by requiring them to sell off the Chrome web browser. And also to stop having these contracts in which they pay people like Apple and various other cell phone providers to make Google search the default on phones and in browsers. And the decision in that case, at long last, came out on Tuesday of this week. And the markets loved it, but a lot of antitrust folks were pretty unhappy because the judge ruled against the Chrome breakup. He said that Google can keep paying companies to be the default. It just can't be the exclusive default. And he said that they will have to share a little bit of data with their rivals, but he significantly cabined the amount of data that they're going to have to share with other people.
Now, thank you, first of all, for that update. The judge ultimately now rejected what some would consider the most severe remedy that the government wanted, talking about forcing Google to sell Chrome. It was certainly the most juicy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What was Judge Mehta's reasoning for stopping short of that breakup, and how significant is this decision for the broader antitrust landscape?
Yeah, so he said that the Justice Department had just not persuaded him that it was something that was necessary. Most of the case had, in fact, focused on Google's contracts with other browser manufacturers. So the ones that it has with Mozilla's Firefox, the one that it has with Apple for Safari. And those were primarily the ones that the case was about. And he felt that those should therefore be like the contracts that he makes the remedy about. He said, you know, the Justice Department did not allege that the use of Google search in Chrome was legal. So he found no need to sort of require them to sell it off, even though at the trial there were so many people who had offered to buy it. And in fact, you know, Perplexity sort of re-upped that bid just a couple weeks ago.
Now, this, I think, is kind of one of the most fascinating aspects of this case, because it's almost, we're watching how things can change so quickly and sort of shape a case in real time. You mentioned in your piece that AI fundamentally changed everything. How did the emergence of generative AI influence the thinking, and what does this mean for how courts might view tech monopolies going forward? You know, this seems to be, it's going to be an impact across the entire landscape, right?
Yeah. So one of the things the judge highlighted a lot in his opinion was how he feels that generative AI really has changed the landscape. So he noted that when we had the original trial, which was back in the fall of 2023, generative AI only came up a couple times. At that point in time, ChatGPT existed, but it was still very new. Google had introduced its Gemini product, but it was also still very new. But then by the time we had the remedy trial, which was earlier in the spring, the remedy trial ended up being almost entirely about AI. So there were executives from OpenAI, there were executives from Perplexity, there were executives from Apple talking about how they have started incorporating all these different AI tools into the iPhone. So the judge said that he found that like the entire case has now become about AI. And in his view, then he doesn't need to do as much to change the market because AI is probably going to do it for him. I've talked to a bunch of antitrust experts who are a little bit wary of that argument, though, because it seems to suggest that now the tech companies are going to be able to come into court and say, yeah, we may have broken the law before, but look, there's this new thing. and you don't have to worry about it now. I mean, we've seen this a lot in the Facebook case that went to trial earlier this year, where Facebook essentially came into court and said, yes, we did buy up Instagram and WhatsApp back in the day, but you don't really need to concentrate on that anymore because TikTok is here. So it seems like a lot of these tech companies are really picking up on this argument that because technology is changing so fast, even if we did something bad in the past, you don't have to worry.
Hmm. Now, Google did avoid this breakup, right? You've got, I think companies going, well, now our $1 billion offers for this just don't mean anything. And they're probably secretly going, phew, there'd be a lot of money to cough up. But they do have to make some concessions, particularly around data sharing with competitors. So, yeah, you talked about this, a little bit of data sharing. What does that mean for Google to share data, and who actually benefits from this?
So this is the one part of the remedy that he ordered, and we're not going to know exactly about it for a little while. So he did create what he's calling the technical committee, and it's going to be 3 people who are going to be picked by the Justice Department and Google to help him sort of come up with a lot of the rules about what data Google is going to share and how to protect it, to make sure that 1, bad actors cannot get a hold of it, and 2, that any user information is not revealed, and that users like searches are still remain private. So he did say that they are going to have to share some data, that they're only going to have to do it once. So all of these companies that can get the data are only really going to get a one-time sort of sneak peek of Google's sort of index. And so it's not really clear how much only getting to see Google's index once is how useful that is really going to be to some companies. Some of the companies who are really excited about this potential remedy, like DuckDuckGo, have already come out and said that this is a nothing burger. Some other companies, though, that are AI companies, this is like allowing them to not have to go around and scrape the entire web because they're going to get a copy of Google's index. They may be able to build new models off of that without having to do all their own scraping. So some AI companies are probably going to be a little bit more excited about getting access to this data than some of the sort of more search engine focused companies.
That is that's fascinating, because yes, if you only kind of take from the headlines, or if you're hearing a little bit about this, you're going to probably miss that aspect, that this is a one-time deal as opposed to being a kind of regular data sharing practice. That's really interesting. Another notable aspect here is Google is still going to be allowed to pay companies like Apple for default search placement. We know that has been like upwards of $20 billion a year. Why did the judge decide to preserve those payment arrangements instead of banning them outright, given how much it seemed to be an early focus from the case and kind of from the people watching from outside?
This is the part of the opinion that's actually a little bit schizophrenic, because the judge all along has said that he's really, really worried about the fact that Google is spending so much money on these deals. $20 billion is a lot of money. It's like the value, I think somebody said it's the value of Disney, Paramount, and one other major company combined. So that's how much money like Google is paying Apple every year. And another company is really not going to be able to match that. So he had expressed this concern over and over again. But then when it came down to it, he said he was really, really worried about the impact that not allowing these payments at all was going to have on the companies that are already getting this. So, for example, Mozilla had made a really big case at the remedy that if they were to cut off the money that Google pays them, it's somewhere around $400 to $500 million a year. That's their biggest source of revenue. And so if a judge were suddenly to cut it off, that's pretty damaging for this nonprofit. And that seemed to have a lot of sway with the judge. I was a little bit more surprised that he cared that much about Apple. I mean, Apple did offer an executive who said it kept him up at night, the thought that they might not be getting this $20 billion in free money. But it's not like Apple isn't one of the biggest companies on the planet. It probably would have been a fine, even if it wasn't getting $20 billion in free cash.
Now, you do describe, again, I think we talked about this throughout, nothing burger, slap on the wrist. How are Google's competitors responding to these remedies? And do they think that this is going to restore competition at all, or in some ways? Or you talked about how the AI companies seem to be kind of pleased about it. But is it enough according to its competition?
That's a really good question. I mean, as I said, some of the people who were very involved in the trial, in terms of like providing evidence to the government and helping them shape their theories, were very disappointed in this remedy because the judge didn't take very many of the government's proposals and therefore, some of the ideas from these companies. But as I said, some of the AI companies are actually pretty interested in this idea that they might get this, snapshot of Google's database and can therefore use it for, training their own models. So I sort of expect that we're going to see a lot more from the AI companies going forward than we have from some of the older companies like the Mozillas and the DuckDuckGos of the world.
Lastly, looking ahead, we know that Google, as you mentioned, is facing another major antitrust case focused on its advertising technology business. Do you think this ruling will influence that separate case? And what does the decision signal about the government's kind of overall strategy for reining in big tech? Because it often changes with administrations.
Yeah, so that case, on Friday, we are expecting sort of the final proposal from the government about what it wants from Google. It has already said that it wants to break Google's sort of advertising business up. It wants them to have to sell some of the tools that it controls that help people buy ads. And then later this month, down in Virginia, there's going to be a 2 to 3 week remedy trial on that. This judge has been moving the case forward a lot faster, so we probably will have some kind of decision on that remedy maybe by the end of the year. And it is very interesting because now she has this decision from Judge Mehta and all of this stuff about how he was so concerned about the breakup. She also has a decision that came in the Epic case in California, which was Epic Games had sued Google over its App Store. So she has these two other decisions about what Google is going to have to do to change its business in response to that. And she can sort of tailor her own decision in light of these other things that have already happened. This judge, however, she's already sort of indicated that she is pretty open to the idea of a breakup here, though, because Google, she has found that Google has illegally monopolized 2 markets, and the government has proposed that in response, Google would have to sell off its tools in those 2 markets. And she did sort of indicate that she is open to that. So Google going in is going to have to, I think, make more of a case to sort of dissuade her from the potential breakup here.
That makes sense. I think you, of course, have had a busy week, or you're probably going to have a busy next several years as things continue to go through. I'm sure we'll see all sorts of changes and updates and new rulings, and it's hard to wade through all of it. So I appreciate you for doing that. If people would like to keep up with the work that you're doing, where should they go to do so?
Yeah, you can follow me on Bloomberg.com. We have a feature that allows you to get an email every time I write a story. And you can find me on Blue Sky at Leah Nylen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You enjoying this tiny taste of Tech News Weekly? I'm happy to hear it. You can check out the full show on our website, twit.tv/TNW, or you can watch it right here on YouTube. Just click the link below.